If you have the choice, take both, is what the title reads. How to become resilient and more flexible. And the basic conditions of industrial value have fundamentally shifted, we could say. Instead of maximum efficiency, the focus is increasingly about resilience to external influences. And the answer we'll now receive from our two guests of how to make this work. So let's bring them up with a big round of applause. We have
Vice President Industrial Connectivity Products at Siemens AG, Markus Weinlander.
And
CTO of Trilogis, coming all the way from Italy, Federico Viani.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Big hand of applause. Thank you so much for coming here, being with us.
Thank you.
All right.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So, are we both in this?
We're both in this.
Yeah, we're both
so.
in this now, all right?
Which is cool, because I think it brings a bit more perspectives in there.
Yes, it does.
The gentleman technology thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
First of all, great to have you with us. How are you doing so far?
It's great. It's a great show here, and you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you very much. I mean, we've met a couple of times, obviously, here at the fair in the past years.
Sure.
3 years of absence. Your first impression after 1.5 days?
Well, I feel that people are happy to come back in real life, and it's really helpful to get in a social interaction with people. So digital and virtual is fine, but real life is better.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is
definitely.
this your first visit at?
Yeah, it's my first time here.
Oh, really?
Always is incredible. Always is huge, and so everything fine.
Nice, exciting.
It's good.
Glad to be here.
Definitely are on a mission now to bring more information out there. So we're living in exciting times, that's for sure, and challenges, also big opportunities. You say in every challenge there is a great opportunity. Many corporations are fighting against shortage and shaken supply chains. Right now, I think there is no market where we don't face that. How should companies react, to your point of view, on these external disruptions where we have no influence?
Yeah, actually, in my opinion, improving resilience is one way to react, of course. But what does it mean? It means that we have to understand, to improve the awareness about the relations between cause and effects in a process, okay? When you understand, when you have awareness about these relations, you can also understand your inefficiencies. And if you understand your inefficiencies, you can react, okay? If you don't know how to improve, it's difficult to improve. That's the point.
Right, right.
And I think that in the customers, our role is to stimulate a change of mind. So they have to trust technologies somehow. Okay, they have to feel aware that they can do better. Okay, and if you feel this, if you have this awareness, then you can change something. For sure, the convergence between IT and OT is one good point for us, because you are closer and closer to the process. Yeah. This is my opinion. So a change of mind, measure the process and improve the process. That's the point.
All right.
Fair points.
How about you?
Well, I totally agree with all what you have said. If you reflect a little bit on the big thing, what's changing in the last 2 years, it's really that the competition, or the way how competition works, has been changed. I mean, in the past, it was about being efficient or being cost effective or making a better product or both of all. Now it's really about speed. So the one who is able to deliver parts and to deliver the things you want to have, he will make the deal. And if you remember the first lockdown, I mean, every one of us was shopping laptops and headsets and hairdressers and everything we need for the home office. And there was no time and no option to read test reports anymore, because there was only one deal you can make. Mm-hmm. So you bought it and you were happy to get it. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And this changed how the industry works, or has to work. And this is the reason why companies have to become more resilient against shaken supply chains and things that happens around in the world, and also more adaptive or flexible to well produce the things which are possible at the moment, and not what is in a plan which was created 2 weeks ago.
But that means all these aspects which you mentioned before, which we had to fulfill, speed comes on top. It's not that they are not important anymore and not being taken care of.
Right, but I think speed becomes more and more decisive. for that
So that's
part.
the key element for anything.
I think so. Yeah.
So how can companies adapt to these changes now, going into detail?
Yeah, there are a big basket of options to do, and I want to pick up two things of it. First is we have to get rid of all these fixed installed conveyor systems which connect the machines in a factory, and work with HEVs which can be rearranged in just a glimpse of seconds by pressing a button and programming the software in a different way. You can also reconfigure the factory itself, bringing new machines in if there is a shortage at some point. This helps a lot, and customers are doing that already, like Material Solutions, a customer of Siemens in UK. And the other thing is we have to integrate our supply chain partners for that, because it doesn't help if I have the knowledge what I can produce now. I have to see if my supplier can supply the parts I need. And here we work also with companies like Word Industry Service, who is supplying parts to our manufacturing plant in Karlsruhe. And we have a real-time system with RFID to look into the factory and see if we take off a box with a certain material, bring it back, it's empty, we get the signal and are ready to deliver the next one.
Okay.
And that is the thing how it should work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Federico?
Yeah,
your side?
I totally agree with Markus. And in my opinion, one of the first steps is the process digitalization, because once the process is digitalized, you can do everything you want, because you have in your hands the data, the information. You can find inefficiencies, as I said before. So you can find how to improve. So this is the first point, I think. Digitalize the process, and then we can apply algorithms, we can apply AI, we can find how to improve. But the first part is this important step. Then we can also think about prediction, we can think about the effects of the decisions we put on the process. But initially, we need to digitalize everything. So we need technologies.
And I think it starts with that. I mean, we hear that basically everywhere. You can't emphasize this enough. You can't underline it enough. It starts with that process, with the digitalization process.
Yep.
Once you got that in place, then we can take the next steps, basically, right?
Yeah. Well,
Markus,
I'm not really sure. I mean, you're right. You have to understand what's going on in the factory. But we are at a point where things are really changing. It's not doing more of the same like in the past. Dirk Didascolo, our CTO, so your colleague, brings it to the point yesterday when he said, we are coming from process-driven manufacturing and we are going to data-driven manufacturing. And that's a big difference. I mean, how I work with things. Process-driven means I make a plan and I build my factory to execute that plan as efficient as possible. Data-driven means I'm able to react on everything which is going on and every disturbance and influences and things like that. And this makes really a big difference for me.
But enable to do that, you need to digitalize it.
Yep.
Right.
That's the condition.
There we
of
go.
course.
We need data. Yeah. So looking at the architecture, automation has been built for decades as a pyramid, aggregating data from layer to layer. IT works, however, very, very different.
Yeah. Actually, the chain from the shop floor up to the software application is becoming shorter and shorter. So from my point of view, for example, that I take care of software application, software development, from my point of view, everything is data generators today. We are in the position that every part of the process generates information. The point is how to aggregate this information and how to extract value from this information. Okay, so we can, as I said before, we can apply algorithms, but we need before to have everything on the same level. Okay, so the convergence between IT and OT again is one very important point, because we have the process on top of the architecture, on top of the infrastructure, so we can manage the steps of the process as a part of a digital process itself, okay? And again, we can apply AI, yes, because we have control of all the parts, all the assets. Just to give you an example, we are working now on digitalized manufacturing process, and we are computing KPIs to understand the performance of the process. But the data coming to define these KPIs comes from a lot of different assets, from people, from machines, from AGVs, from goods, from everything that is part of the process. That is totally different respect to 10 or 20 years
before.
ago.
Yeah, where it
Yeah.
just had few assets.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I mean, it means that the automation pyramid as we have it will remain for a control architecture. So we will have a PLC in the future. We will have HMI. We will have a manufacturing execution system on top. But if we look on the communication architecture, how to get to this data, this has to change in a fundamental way again. So the PLC will be one dot in a network, a data source, as you mentioned. The same for all these sensors. And therefore, we have to apply also new technologies. For instance, we need OPC as a common language in the topic, because today with Profinet, we are just transmitting the value of a sensor. It's just, let's say, 17. And the PLC know by engineering what it is about. But if you look on a data scientist who is working on the cloud level, and he gets a value, he has to understand what does this value mean? Is it Celsius? Is it Fahrenheit? Where does it come from in the factory? Is it valid? Has it a good quality? All these things. And this can be modeled with OPC. And that's a very important point, in my opinion, to bring this concept to life, as you mentioned. Same for edge computing, which is also an important topic, I mean, for Siemens. But we cannot transmit all the data to the cloud. We have to bring it to that level where it can be computed fast enough to take reactions on the shop floor. And therefore, cloud computing is also an important milestone, in my opinion, to make this concept happen.
Sure. Just to close the comment, one single stream of data is maybe useless, but you have a lot of streams. You can correlate them. You can find values in the correlation of the data. So the algorithms for sure is very important.
Absolutely. And comparing with the automation pyramid, you do not know upfront which value, which information is the one which makes the difference. You find it out on the way and see how the AI algorithm reacts on some parts. Yeah.
So what is the approach one should take to become such an agile and data-driven company? I mean, once again, to digitalize and so forth, we got into it a bit, of course, but let's go into the approach a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the way of a digital transformation of a company is unique to every company, to every business model, to every market condition, to every customer structure this company will have. So everyone has to take his own way and find out what brings really value to him. There's no big blueprint you can just apply and everyone is fine with that. But that means my recommendation would be start with small proof of concept. So start trying out this technology, that technology, try RTLS, try 5G, try edge connectivity, all these things, and then select the feasible one and scale it up fast.
Okay.
And I mean, that would be the same recommendation for me for the entire business model. We are beyond the times where you can plan it up front and make a project for 5 years and then see how it works or not.
Yeah, I totally agree. For us, it's the same, because in our experience, the users itself is part of the project itself, because they, for example, participate in the testing processes. Okay, they are part of the testing processes in a completely agile approach, of course. And so you can, following this approach, you can find problems on time and finding solutions directly with the customer involved in this process. And again, also we start with small POC just to understand if the software we are developing, the system we are developing is okay for the customer, and they can check all the feature of the system, not only one part, one piece. And as usually happens, we develop the system in a small part of the factory, in a small part of the warehouse, for example. And then if it works there, we can scale up and transfer the solutions and the results everywhere in the factory. So this approach forces us to develop a system that is scalable itself, okay? Because if it works in a small part, then you can replicate everywhere, and with a very simple and easier approach, with a lower risk also.
So in the end, I mean, everybody wants to become more agile and more data-driven, but the approach is always very individual as the company itself, as individual as the industry they're in, the products they produce, maybe even, the countries they're operating in, and so forth. So once again, I guess that applies to many things in life, right? There's always there's a desired outcome, but there are probably 1,000 paths you can probably take. But the nice thing is we have the right solutions for every one of these paths.
Absolutely. And the important thing is really to make it scalable, as you mentioned also. So you can start small and scale up fast, so you're ready for the challenging times.
Great.
Fast, talking about the speed, which you mentioned before, which is so important for our customers. So that kind of closes the circle.
Absolutely.
All right. And this also, closes our talk. Looking at the time, 5 seconds left. We'd like to say thank you very much for joining us. And
this
of course,
is where we find you.
Yes.
Quick
Right.
nap.
It's more or less at the other part of a booth, and we are happy to answer all your questions.
Perfect. There will be a lot, I guess, for all great solutions to come.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
For your
Thank you.
time on stage.
Andiamo, mi fai
Round
un
of applause.
minuto
Thank you very much,
per
Markus.
spostare
It was a
distrazione.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you
Chris,
very
it was a
much.
pleasure. Bye.
Same.
Perfect. What about some coffee now?
Now?
Now.
Ok.
Who's a coffee drinker here? Anybody? Yeah.